All right, we have a team last call here, Marketing 450, Coach Garber's market research class. What we're going to be doing is taking you through our qualitative research of all the interviews that we have recently done in these last couple of days with students regarding classroom environment and how they receive feedback and the way they prefer to receive it. All right, so first I'm going to take you guys through a quick introduction of all the concepts that we're going to be covering in this podcast. First, we're going to be talking about passion. Then we're going to take you guys through the structure. Next, the interaction. Then the guidance. Then timeliness, and lastly, the types of feedback. So, with that being said, let's get started here. All right. So to begin, we're going to bring up our first topic of passion. And to begin talking, we're going to talk about the interaction that students want with teachers. You know, throughout our interviews, a lot of students mention that they think more interaction is better with the teacher. It helps them get to know the teacher more, understand who he is or who or she is, and students really want as much as that as possible, and it helps give them understanding of the class. And next, we're going to talk about more interaction shows that a professor cares. That's really important to students. That students want a teacher that's passionate about the subject, that's passionate about teaching them. It helps the students get involved in the classes more, and it helps them keep them more keep their attention better. And what all this builds up to, if you do both of these things, it's really going to help build a relationship with your teacher from a student's perspective, which is another thing that we found very common throughout all of our interviews. Students want to have that relationship with their teachers. It helps them relate to them more. They become more approachable. If you have a question for them, you're not so scared to ask them, and it just really stimulates that learning experience. Helps stimulate the feedback, and it's just something that's really important that we think in a classroom. So the next concept that we want to bring up is the structure of the classroom, and really how students like a classroom to be laid out for them to learn the most efficient way. And to begin talking, one thing we noticed is that students like to be held accountable for assignments or readings of the classroom. And what we mean by accountability is being required to do the reading before class. And some of the reasons that students explained why this is helpful is if you go into the classroom having read the material because the teacher requires you to, you have an understanding of where you need help or where you're strong at it, so it just gives the student a better feel of what kind of questions to ask the teacher, and where their strong suits are in the material. So and sometimes students need that, they need a teacher to have that requirement, just because we all have tendencies to be lazy. Sometimes they're not going to do it on their own. So when a teacher has the structure of the classroom of a requirement, such as Coach Garber has in quizzes every day, it forces a student to do those readings. Next, quantity of assignments is another big point that students talked about. If you're doing a topic and you have multiple assignments on that topic, it's just going to help drive that point home even more. Just repetition. So that's another thing that students really brought up in our interviews, that they like when teachers have a lot of assignments for a single topic, just because it puts it in their memory more. This next one we'd like to talk about is real-world examples. Students really like when a teacher structures the class around real-world examples of the topic they're talking about. It helps put in perspective of how what they're learning is used in the real world, and how it gives them an idea of something that they might be doing in the future, and it also keeps them more interested, and just provides a better learning experience for them. Okay, so the third concept that we're going to bring up is interaction with peers. We touched on interaction a little bit before with the professor. Now we're going to talk about how students like to interact with their fellow classmates and their fellow peers. What it does, it essentially that helps teach one another. When you're interacting with your peers in the classroom, you get multiple opinions. You see how other people view a same problem. They might view the same problem completely differently. It just gives you a lets you see different people's perspectives on things, and students thought that was really important, just seeing how other people think. And it's also a really important life lesson as well, to interact with one another, because you're going to be interacting with other people your whole life in the business world. And also students also mentioned that they really like to have healthy debate in a classroom. Whether the teacher be a mediator or whether you're having a debate in a group, they think it's a really big contribution to their learning experience to have that debate, just because you can get your point across, you can see other people's perspective as well, and it harnesses those arguing skills that are going to be critical in the business world. You want to say, this is my point and this is why this is my point. So and it's also an enjoyable activity. A lot of them thought, it's fun to have that healthy debate in class and to argue your point, and it just makes the learning experience even that much more enjoyable. Okay, so next we're going to talk about guidance and kind of how students like to receive guidance, or how they think it's beneficial. To begin, I'll start with talking about the syllabus. This is established usually on the first day of class, as us students like to call it, syllabus day. And that's just really where the teacher lays out all of their expectations really for the students, and kind of how the class is going to be conducted, and the level of work that the teacher expects to see from their students. And another point of guidance that was brought up in a couple of our interviews was comparisons. Showing a student a comparison between right and wrong. One of our interviewees, he's a construction management major, and a lot of the things they do is hands-on. And their teacher will walk around and show them, you did this wrong, and this is what a correct one looks like. This is why you did it wrong. This is how you do it right. So a lot of that hands-on feedback, and just showing them how they did it wrong, why they did it wrong, and then also showing them, next time this is how you do it right. There was actually a couple of scenarios. That was just one particular one, but showing a comparison between right and wrong, students thought were very beneficial, just to kind of see, really how the correct way to do it, and what a correct finished product should look like. All right, so this next concept of timeliness that we're going to talk about, this is really what all of our students consider to be the bread and butter. This is it. This is where legends go to die. So this is really where teachers can make or break feedback. It's no surprise that quicker the better. If you can get that feedback in a student's mind when those pistons are firing, it's going to be that much more beneficial, and that information is fresh in their mind. So giving a student feedback 3 weeks later, it's not really that beneficial. It's just dust in the wind, as Kansas would say. So you really want to get it in there as quick as possible, and obviously, like I said earlier, quicker the better. And this was brought up in a lot of our podcasts. Students really like when a teacher can get that feedback out there really quick. And not only did they talk about feedback, but they also talked about grading. They think it's really beneficial if a teacher can get grades up really quick, because it lets students know how they did on that assignment or grade, or whatever, essay or whatever it was. And if they did poorly on it, they can look back on that topic and see, what points did they miss, or they can go to the teacher's office hours right away, say, why did I get that grade? So when it comes to feedback and grading, students said quicker the time, the better. Alright, so all the points that we've just been talking about, what they all essentially lead up to is creating this healthy culture in a classroom. That's really what students want. Having that comfortable and safe environment, the learning environment. It's all about, it all leads up to building that culture. And if you can get that healthy culture, it's just gonna, students are gonna feed off one another. Students and teachers are gonna bond. There's gonna be just a good vibe going on in that room, a good aura. And so if you can build that healthy culture, what that is gonna lead to, and the outcome of that culture is gonna be tremendous feedback. It's just gonna come naturally, and that's what we really want to get at. We want to get that natural feedback that's just easy to give, easy to receive, and that's beneficial and clear and simple. So we just talked about how feedback is the outcome of culture, and now we're just going to discuss the various types of feedback that the students we interviewed would prefer to receive. To begin, specified feedback was brought up numerous amounts of times. Students, when they receive feedback, sometimes they feel it's a little too vague, just a quick sentence on the paper or something like that. They would like to get more in-depth feedback. Just talk about how they did it wrong even more. And then next, in-process feedback is actually huge. Students actually found this extremely beneficial, and what we mean by in-process feedback is you get feedback while you're doing an assignment. So For example, in an English class, you turn in a rough draft before you turn in a final draft. That's kind of in-process feedback. You're gonna receive notes on that assignment before you turn in a final project. And students really like that because you can bring your project or assignment to a teacher and say, this is what I have so far. What do you think? Where should I go with it? What should I add? What should I remove? And it just really helps paint a picture for the student of where he should take that assignment without really holding his or her hand the whole time. We're gonna next is constructive feedback. And this is really based off the relationship that you have with your teacher, because you can't really have constructive criticism unless you're comfortable with that person, you trust that person. Otherwise, it could come off the wrong way. But a lot of the students that we did interview, they have good relationship with their teachers, and they prefer the constructive criticism. They want to hear, the down and dirty about their assignments. So if you can build that good relationship, constructive criticism is really beneficial to students. And lastly, anonymous feedback, some students preferred, and this also kind of ties into what kind of person that is. Some people, when it comes to giving and receiving feedback, they would prefer it to be anonymous. They might be a little more shy. And a couple of people we interviewed did prefer to give or receive feedback anonymously, just to kind of eliminate any possible tension that there would be in tearing apart someone's essay or project or assignment. So those are all the various types of ways that our students prefer to receive feedback. Like I said, it all really depends on the type of person you are, but they all saw very wide benefits in all four of them. All right, so we just got done talking about the different types of feedback that students like to receive, and now we just like to go over a couple of the barriers that sometimes hinder that feedback. First, availability is a huge barrier for students and teachers. We're all busy. Teachers are very busy. They have to do a lot of research. Students have 12 plus credits usually, so availability is a big issue. Sometimes our schedules just conflict, and that really ties into time. Like I just said, some of us just don't have enough time to either go to the office hours, or sometimes the teacher doesn't have enough time to spend so much time on a certain assignment or project to give feedback on it. So it's just a big barrier from both aspects of the relationship. Next is specific feedback. It's hard to give sometimes, because of the two restrictions I just mentioned, availability and time. So when teachers do give feedback, sometimes it's quick and vague. They have 100, 200, 300 plus students to give feedback to. They want to do it in the quickest, most efficient way possible. So sometimes you don't get that depth that students really want and that sometimes students really need. Lastly is the reliability of the feedback, and this doesn't really pertain too much to the teacher, just because if it's coming from your teacher, it better be reliable. But this is more pertaining to the peer-to-peer feedback. A lot of the things we notice while we're doing our interviews is sometimes students don't really like the peer-to-peer feedback just because they don't know if they trust it. Who's to say the person sitting next to me is smarter than I am? Because I know they're not. They know they're not. It's just how it is. Alright, so now we're gonna just discuss the outcomes of really what we've been talking about, essentially feedback. What does feedback lead to, and what does it do for a student? To begin, it helps a student with self-assessment. Giving and receiving feedback helps the student take a step back and look at his own work. When you've critiqued multiple pieces of work, or when you've had your work critiqued, it kind of gives you an idea and a better learning of how to do it. And just like I said, it allows you to look at your own work and critique it even better, which is a big asset to have in the business world. You want to be able to be self-critical. It's a big asset. Next is optimal learning. If you have good feedback, you're just gonna learn more. It's just how the cookie crumbles nowadays. You know what I'm saying? And lastly, outside of optimal learning and all the other and the self-assessment, good feedback is gonna create business-ready graduates. And that's huge for CMU particularly. We're gonna be putting out the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the colossal clot. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to put out the best of the best. So it's just a big being able to produce college graduate, business-ready students. It's just be very beneficial to the university and also to the individual itself. All right, so now that we've hit all the topics that we wanted to hit, we're just going to go back and get a quick recap for you folks. We touched on passion. We talked about structure. Then we talked in the peer-to-peer interaction, guidance that teachers provide. The timeliness, which, like we said, timeliness is crucial. Don't forget it. And what all those things lead up to. Like we said, they build the culture, which is just probably the most important aspect of a classroom that a teacher needs to establish. And the outcome of that culture, like we just mentioned, you get all those various types of feedback, which help a student beyond words can imagine. And then, we talked about the different barriers that restricts feedback sometimes. And then, we just went through all the outcomes of those feedbacks. So, with all that being said, this is Team Last Call. I'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.